What's the word, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the By the Horns podcast, presented by the one and only Toyota. And Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith and my man Drew Stevens of The Big coming to you during this all-star break. It's been a little while, and I think we all needed a nice pause on the NBA season for a number of different things. And Drew, I hope you're doing well, man. It's been a little minute since we talked to the people and got on this By the Horns podcast. Let's start it differently, man, because we had a little pause on the season just to kind of get a refresh and almost a reset on the season. How you doing, bro? How's everything, man?
Man, I appreciate you asking, man. I feel like we haven't seen each other enough, man, for whatever reason, schedules and those types of things. But I'm good, man. Been kind of in and out of a little bit of an illness past couple of weeks. Like I thought I had beat it. Now I'm kind of phlegmy again, but got to push forward, man. Got to keep.
Yeah. It's something going on in Chicago. I don't know what it is, and it feels like it's been going on for maybe like the past 6 months.
Yeah.
Where there's some type of sickness going around, and everybody's getting it in some form or fashion. Like I've been sick. That swept through my whole family, like my baby girl, my son, my wife. It's just one of them things that you just hope to try and avoid it, but that joint is just like, you know what I'm saying, it's unavoidable at times, especially if you got kids. You know how it is, Drew. I mean, you got a little one, so it's just like, man, you got to be there and just kind of go through it. Yeah.
I'm thankful that it's not like I'm not fatigued or having like night sweats or chills, none of that stuff. Just the phlegm. Just got to get that out.
All right, man, get that out so we can get into these final 27 games of the NBA season for these 24-25 Chicago Bulls. Before we get there, and we're really not even going to touch on the Bulls too much on this podcast, but we got to focus in on the 74th annual NBA All-Star Game that was held in the Bay. Shout out to everybody in the Bay. I mean, Oaktown, San Fran, but I always focus on Oakland when it comes to like anytime somebody says the Bay, because I always view that as the essence, like the history of Oakland from a political standpoint, from a sports standpoint, from a music standpoint. Like Oakland is so rich in history, and we saw a little bit of that on a musical standpoint before and during the halftime of the 74th NBA All-Star Game on Sunday. But I'm gonna start it here, Drew. What the hell, man? What the hell was that? What are we doing? What are we doing with the NBA that we grew up loving on All-Star Weekend? Something that you look forward to, something that was an honor for guys in the league when they got that selection to an NBA All-Star Game, or they submitted their name for a dunk contest or a three-point contest, and they were chosen, that they took that with seriousness instead of just, man, it's a chore. I'll go out here, shoot a little bit, play around, but it's all good. Try and collect the check, maybe get an extra bag, but I'm not really serious on this. So again, Drew, what the hell was that over the weekend?
Man, Cam, that was an overcorrection, man. That was an overcorrection. I was overstimulated by everything that was going on. I wasn't really sure what team was which, who was playing for which team. The breaks in action, Kevin Hart getting a whole lot of airtime. The musical acts. You know, they paid homage to 𝗵40 and Too Short. 𝗻₍ came out, and it was just a lot going on. In Vogue too. And like I said, I was just overstimulated. I felt like as soon as we heard or got word that LeBron was not going to suit up, it kind of already put a dent in the evening. I personally would have liked for him to have maybe come out earlier and let it be known that he was not going to play. Same could be said of Anthony Edwards as well. That could have been spots that two other guys could have had. So that just kind of put a damper on it right from the jump. And specifically the way that LeBron went about handling that, I didn't agree with how that went down. I wish he would have did that differently. But I thought that the games in and of themselves were cool. Like it was fairly competitive. I thought some guys were really out there trying to play defense. I think Kyrie, for one, stands out. Victor Wembanyama stands out. But just a lot happening, and it was hard to keep track of, man, okay, what are we doing here? Who's about to play? Which players on home? Which team? Mm-hmm. And I think Draymond Green was going hard for no reason, especially at the Rising Stars. I was really kind of taken aback why he was going so hard at them. It's not their fault. if anything, Draymond should have took that up with Adam Silver, but even more so with his fellow veteran all-stars of recent vintage who have not put themselves or the league in a position where they felt comfortable enough to continue with the same format that we've seen, for the last few seasons. They made it possible or in this position where Adam Silver felt like he had to switch things up. So I think throwing shots at the rising stars was uncalled for, in my opinion. And it's weird because the actual point deficit, the biggest deficit came in the championship game. And I think part of that may be due to these long breaks in action that we saw, especially, like I said, when they brought out the last kind of musical performers that came out. The evening just was off balance. Shouts out to the young man that won $100,000, but I didn't really need to see that. It felt like I was watching Universal Circus, the basketball version. It just was a lot happening, hard to keep track of. And it's a shame because, like I said, I thought the basketball in and of itself was cool. Like I thought guys were playing no worse competitively as they were in years past, but just too much going on. It's the first season we've seen this happen, so I'm sure they're going to make little tweaks here, and I hope they're going to make little tweaks here and there to get this thing back on the road in a better way. But I think ultimately, and maybe we'll get to this more later on, I don't think there's a quick fix to this. It's not going to be offering these guys more money. It's not going to be putting playoff positioning at stake. I think it's going to have to be a matter of one of the new guards, figuratively speaking, of the league, who takes it upon himself to make this game what we remember it being, more of a competitive affair and less of, man, I'm going to shoot these 45-foot three-pointers and, throw lobs every possession of this game. It's going to take that new face of the league, or faces plural of the league, to swing this thing back to what we've seen before. Because I don't think it's any saving of the game right now that's going to happen in terms of, like I said, trying to make it, have more stakes. I don't really see that happening. What was your perspective on it?
Yeah, I come from it from this point of view, as I mentioned, like what happened to the NBA that I loved when it came to NBA All-Star Weekend. And honestly, I'll just take it to that step too before I went to All-Star Weekend. What happened to the NBA that I love? What happened to the guys going out there and getting it and just competing and not just saving it for an Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals or an NBA Finals? All right. That's where I'm coming from with how I grew up watching the game, how I played the game, just how I was taught, and us coming from Chicago and the amount of guys that have been able to play high level, high school, college, and also professional level basketball. That's just how we grew up, right? And I hate this to come off as a old man, remember back in my time, these young dudes don't know what they're doing, get off my lawn type of energy. But at the same time, though, it says something about your competitive level that tells me everything that I need to know about you as a basketball player. And I want to say this is not to say that none of these guys that are at the level that they're at now, of course, we're talking LeBron James on down to the last man, if you can chart him or stat him when it comes to his numbers in the league, don't compete. It's not that they're soft. It's not that they're lighthearted. It's not that they don't have any drive or determination. So anybody that's throwing that narrative out there, they can miss me with that, because you don't make it to the league without having some type of grit and some type of just perseverance about yourself to get to where you are. But there is something to say about a level of complacency when it comes to this. There is something to say when it comes to just a stubbornness and also an ego that you have when it comes to All-Star Weekend. Like, I get it. You worked yourself to get to an All-Star level. And now you feel that certain obligations when it comes to playing in the game, competing in the game, competing in these events, they don't mean anything to you. And it's just kind of show up, maybe collect a check if I win, probably collect a check off the court with all these appearances that I'm doing, and just call it a weekend. But keep in mind, this is the same era. And when I think and say same era, I'm talking guys like LeBron James, Chris Paul, same age as me, class of 2003. Shout out to everybody out there still hooping in the class of 2003. Definitely not the level of LeBron and Chris Paul, but these are the same guys that really changed how we view in terms of load management, the extra days off for All-Star Weekend, when it came to them being in positions of power. One, LeBron being the face of the league. Two, Chris Paul being a part of the Players Association in his time there as president. You have these situations where they constructed and created this. And I get it, right? They have a lot of obligations. And for one, I do not understand the level of obligations and just the ripping and running that you have to do when you're on that level. But also something sacred like competing on All-Star Saturday night or competing in the All-Star game on Sunday night. That's something that's special. No matter how many obligations that you have, you make sure that you have enough to show up for the fans that everybody feels has given this league and these players so much, right? This game is nothing without the league. This game is nothing without the fans, more importantly. So when you look at All-Star Weekend, it's really a celebration of the league and its players because you're being selected as not only one of the best players in the league, but one of the best dunkers, one of the best shooters. So you want to put on a show and prove that. And it goes back to the competitive nature of things where it got to a certain point where it didn't matter where I finished or placed or how hard I was playing in the game. I'm good. It didn't matter on that. It's just like I made it. Cool. I can relax, enjoy myself, and then call it a night. But that's the thing that I'm conflicted with when it comes to trying to keep this passion and love that I have for the NBA and hoping that it will turn a corner at some point with what I see during these All-Star weekends. And I was in Indianapolis last year. I've been in a number of All-Star games. And what I saw last year in Indianapolis was just lackluster. It was mid. Like nobody was paying attention to the game. Guys were shooting threes from half court, and there was more side conversations going on in the arena than actually watching the game. And that was the highest score game in NBA All-Star history because it was an insane amount of three-point attempts and three-point makes. So the NBA coming off of that said, okay, well, that was mid, below average. Let's try and switch something up just to try and get the excitement back of the game. Let's do this tournament that we have where we have 4 teams to see if they can battle and compete and bring some type of competitive nature out. And I agree with you. There are a few guys out there that were going a little extra hard, and I like that. Victor Wembanyama, and maybe to your point of what you were saying, it has to be a new guard that takes over, that brings back that energy, that brings back that high-level competitiveness when it comes to these games. And you saw it in Wemby, right? You saw it in guys, even with Giannis, with him being off of the bench. This is one thing that I always respect about Giannis is that he's going to compete no matter what. Yeah. And that's what is something that is missing across the board with all of these All-Stars and playing in this game. So there are a lot of finger pointing. There's a lot of finger pointing going on when it comes to the Draymond Green, LeBron James era of why are we doing these gimmicky events? Brother, you got to point the finger back at yourself. And my biggest thing with Draymond Green and listening to him throughout the broadcast during the pre-halftime and post-show, I thought it was really corny for him to really slam on the Rising Stars. And I want to use a 4-letter word that starts with an S because that's what really he did on the Rising Stars. It's not their fault that they were placed in this position. One, they competed in their games on Friday night in the Rising Stars game to have an opportunity to play on the All-Star court on Sunday night. But then two, it's your era's fault of why this gimmicky format is in place. So Draymond, keep that same energy for everybody in your era. Keep that same energy for LeBron James. Keep that same energy for James Harden. Keep that same energy for Steph Curry. And one thing about Steph is that we see him out there competing. Like that's one thing that I do respect about Steph. He's not going through the motions. And so you have to make sure that while you're pointing the finger, you're looking at yourself as well. And at the end of the day, for Draymond and where he's come from in Saginaw, how he's worked himself into a 4-time NBA champion, he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if you don't believe that, then you need to stop watching basketball or critiquing or whatever you're trying to do just to be hating on him. But you have to have a real life, serious, heart-to-heart, man in the mirror conversation with yourself and your era of where the game is. Because if you look at it, when the torch is passed, season after season, almost era after era, there was a certain understanding for guys that were either the faces or within that group of 5 or group of 10 that understood we have to carry the league to its next moments. And you saw that. There was a big concern about with Michael Jordan when he was getting ready to come out. And there was concern about, okay, well, man, Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, this group that obviously the dress code had to be implemented because of how they were dressing on the sidelines. Allen Iverson with tattoos, the culture of all that. How would this league survive? But they understood that we can't be too cool to not compete All-Star Weekend, because they understood the importance of fans. They understood the importance of families sacrificing their money, their time to come watch some of their favorite players. And you go out and do this, and this is the effort that you give. Stop that, man. You have to stop this notion and this mindset that it's the NBA's fault. No, it's your fault because you refuse to do one thing that has made you an NBA player, and that's compete, because you view All-Star Weekend as a weekend off or some days off. Bruh, you're not on vacation yet. Again, you can still compete and play at a high level without going overboard. But also at the same time, this is where you get into these All-Star games and the score is tight and competitive. This is what fans want to see. Similar to what we saw when the first Elam ending was when the All-Star game was in Chicago in 2020, when that first Elam ending happened. I remember being in the press room in the United Center and even hearing the fans when that score was tight, and you saw Joel Embiid hit LeBron with the dream shake, and you saw Bron going after people, and you saw different guys willing to step up and really get after it on both ends of the floor. Like, that's the energy that we need, not the energy of these guys don't belong on the floor. What did they do to earn this spot? Well, you basically rolled out the red carpet for them to get this opportunity. And again, I hate that he took that type of approach on it instead of pointing the finger inwardly at himself and his era, saying, you know what? It's our fault why the game is where it is with this All-Star Weekend. Shout out to the young guys. It's a great opportunity for them, but also we have to do better as players. And I get it. Like, you know, Draymond's preparing himself for his second act after his career is done. And there are certain things that you're going to do media-wise to get reactions out of people. But I honestly believe that's how he feels, right? And so it's one of the reasons why we're talking about it. And a lot of other people are having this conversation on what's going on and what's wrong with All-Star Weekend and these players, is that passion dies off quickly, not even just in the regular season, and that competitive level dies off in the regular season, but it's also All-Star Weekend. So again, Drew, what the hell? What's going on? Do we need to stop watching NBA All-Star Weekend? I saw Kevin Durant tweeting earlier today as we record this podcast on February 17th that he was saying, well, maybe we should just take All-Star Weekend away. That'll make people happy, and fans just want to complain, which I agree to a certain extent, that fans do love to complain, and you're never going to make anybody on social media happy. But also, KD, you know what the reason is. KD is a guy that goes out there and competes. He knows this. He knows the real reason. Draymond knows the real reason. LeBron knows the real reason. But there is something about accountability when it comes to this weekend that they're not stepping up and saying, you know what? Our bad. It's our fault. Let's get things better. Let's move it in the right direction. But Drew, it's still time to do that, because the 75th annual NBA All-Star Weekend is coming next year in LA. So we know that Bron possibly, and he should, get his 22nd All-Star selection. KD should get another All-Star selection. Steph should be there. And it could be the final run for those dudes in those positions. So if this is the final run possibly for them, then why not go out and just give everybody what you came into the league with? And that's competitive fire when it comes to playing this All-Star game.
Yeah, it's a mindset thing. I think that you spoke about Giannis earlier, and he made a comment about how he's always approached the All-Star game as if it was another game, in the sense of his lead up to it, you know, making sure he takes a nap, his pregame meal, the way he prepares his body. And I think it's the approach. It's who else is going about the game in this manner? Who else is setting the tone from the jump? And we know that historically, it's not like every possession of an All-Star game has been competitive, but there's been a certain expectation that come the fourth quarter, whatever the case may be, you know, the crescendo of the game, like there's actually going to be some defense played, and it's not just going to be a free for all out there. As you were talking just now, you gave me an idea that I hadn't thought about before, and I'm still rehashing it now as I'm about to relay it to you. But depending on who's healthy, who gets selected for the game next year, why not have sort of a old guard versus new guard feel to the game? I don't know how you would do that, but some sort of like the OGs where you got KD, Steph, James Harden, LeBron James, maybe Giannis is in there too. I don't know how you want to differentiate the old guys from the new guys, but maybe Joel Embiid is there if he's healthy, AD if he's healthy, versus the Tatums of the world.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Luka Doncic.
I think you can decide that on hairlines, and if you got a balding spot on the top of your head, I think that can define you as the OG with the receding hairline. And again, I'm class of 03, and I'm still intact, baby. I'm still good to go. But when certain things start to get pushed back a little bit, and you see more forehead than hairline, and I think that might determine you as OGs. But I like that idea of bringing that into play. I'm still going to be a big advocate on this, and I know it's a lot of people pushing towards this now, but I've been doing this for the past 2-3 years when it comes to the All-Star game, is having it the U.S. versus the world. I think it's easier said than done. I really believe that, because you have enough international stars, you have enough American stars to where you can field rosters of 12. The only two that I see that could be not an issue, but they would have to make a decision, would be Joel Embiid if he's healthy and he's selected as an all-star, and Kyrie Irving if he's selected as an all-star. They both have dual citizenship, I believe, along with Bam Adebayo as well, but more so with Embiid and Kyrie, knowing that they have that option of playing, as Kyrie talked about post-game after the All-Star game on Sunday, that he's getting the paperwork done to try and play for Australia, the country that he was born in, for the 2028 Olympics in LA. So you have that dynamic. If they decide to play for the U.S., I think that would help that roster, because that international roster is looking very scary. We don't have to go into the full details, but I'm just thinking of 5 off the top of my head. And Shea, Luka, Giannis, Jokic, and Wemby, that's a nasty 5. So I think you can push it towards there where you could see some pride, you could see some competitive nature, because at the end of the day, as someone born and raised on the west side of Chicago, and I'm playing in an all-star game against guys that aren't from Chicago, that aren't from the state of Illinois, that aren't from the United States, and they come out and kick my ass, I take that personally. Yeah. And so I think that's where you can push that competitive nature and get that out more, because I'm sure those international players, Drew, would love to dog walk every American player on that roster, because there's been this mentality for American basketball players that no matter who it is, where we are, we're going to run through you. But that hasn't been the case, because the NBA is not that anymore. If you're looking at the top 5 players in the league, it'd be tough to try and fit an American player in that top 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just saying that's why I push towards the reasoning of making it U.S. versus the world and having that as the all-star game. I think that helps out with possibly not having as many snubs, and maybe if it's not a 12-man roster, maybe a 15-man roster to open it up even more. You go back to the 4-quarter format, 12 minutes, and go hoop, and may the best team win. If you get embarrassed or if you get whooped, that's on you, and you got bragging rights for whoever wins that ball game.
I'm cool with that too. U.S. versus the world. That's a pretty entertaining game, or at least could be an entertaining game. My thing is, I don't think that the league is going to scrap this tournament style that fast. Maybe they will, but I don't. So, while you and I are here spitballing, I'm not sure if Adam Silver will put the kibosh on this tournament that fast,
Hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, man.
True, but I don't think the basketball that was played was the problem. Like, to me, it was a lot of the other things that they were trying to fit into Sunday night. That's what made me get overstimulated. That's what made me feel like, man, what are we doing here? It wasn't the basketball being played,
Okay. I got you on that. It was a lot of Kevin Hart, like you said, a lot of stoppages. I believe there was a breakdown someone that I saw on social media where there was only 42 minutes of actual basketball being played, and TNT made sure to give flowers to Ernie, Shaq, Kenny, and Chuck at halftime. I thought that was weirdly placed at halftime. I think you try and do that before the game. It's just a long stoppage for guys that already don't want to be there in terms of the players. And well, I'm going to say I'm not going to paint them all with a broad paintbrush or stroke, but about 95% of the players are already upset of not having actual gameplay. Then they don't want to be there for the most part. Now you got to continue to have these stoppages in place. So I'm with you on that. There was a lot going around, a lot going on. With that said, though, Raphael Sadiq did his thing with the intros. Him and his band, they killed it. Like, if you can try and go see Tony when they tour again, go do that. Me and my wife saw him a couple of years ago at the Chicago Theater. Crazy. They made us put our phone in the pouches. We understand why, because it was a part of the entire time. And then also the halftime show, which I feel a certain way about it because they're representing the Bay Area. You had a lot of acts from Oakland representing Oakland, like Too Short. Shout out to Too Short, the legend. Shout out to 𝗵40, the legend. 𝗻₍₀ from the Bay. You had 𝗻🏂, which was dope to see 3 of the 4 original members together. So that was super dope to see that. But there was one dude that did not show up, Drew. One dude from Oakland. And his name is 𝗵����. I was shocked that Hammer didn't perform at halftime. I was shocked. So I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You know, the type of performer Hammer was back in his day. I don't know how them joints are looking now.
Hey, it's all in the shoulders, man. It's all in the shoulders now. Like, now with the knee, you can get the shoulders going. You know, break up the pants a little bit, but
that's a lot of
just
wear
keep it
there.
Yeah. I mean,
that
especially with that, right? Especially with that hammer dance, man. Watch out for that ACL, man. Soft tissue injuries. You got to stay away from that hammer. Just, you know, keep it to can't touch this. Keep it to too legit to quit. Don't play pumps in the bump. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with 𝗵𝐶 Hammer pumps in the bump, but y'all got Google, y'all got YouTube. Yeah, we don't need to see that version of Hammer. I was just shocked that Hammer didn't perform at halftime. So I would be curious to know what went to that. But again, it was a lot of, and we get it, the NBA is an entertainment league. It's All-Star weekend, so they go above and beyond. But it was a lot of more entertainment when it comes to musical acts and comedians and comedy hours or segments than it was actual basketball.
Yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. If it is going to remain like a tournament style, I've heard it pitched that maybe instead of that Rising Stars team, you have a team of all-star snubs in there, which I think could be pretty interesting. It can get a little crazy though, because it's like how when you start to reach too much, if you're trying to get a team of 8 all-star snubs,
yeah,
and you have to also think about possible injury replacements. Like, are they still going to have enough to field that 8-man team? But that could be cool too, man. That could light a fire under some guys. Just some different options to go about as we continue to see this thing play out next year in LA and thereafter.
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of options on the table for Adam Silver and really having a serious think tank on what they can do. But you got to get some guys in there that want to hoop, not even play, hoop. When I say hoop and you're a hooper listening to this or watching this on YouTube on the CHSN page, you know what I mean. We need guys out there that want to hoop. I think Anthony Edwards is that. I think he's part of that. I think he wants to do that despite what we saw last year. I think it was a little too much for Ant-Man. I was a little disappointing. But go ahead, Drew.
Anthony Edwards disappointed me a little bit. Not so much because he didn't play because of the injury, but just his approach just seems a little too cool to me. I know last year when he was in the skills competition, he was trying to shoot with his left hand. And at that point in time, that fired me up as well. So maybe it's some of that leftover animosity I feel for him doing that then. But he's got to take his cool off, as our friend Jason Goff would say. But then also, I think to that idea I posed earlier about OGs versus the young guns, we've seen how Anthony Edwards kind of came at KD in the playoffs last season. So I think that could help ratchet up his game and his competitiveness. But yeah, man, he's one of the faces of the league, in my opinion. And if he's not taking the game as serious as we would like him to, who else of his era, of his ilk, of his generation is going to do it? You know, that he's got to take more responsibility for it. And again, this dude is making buku money, crazy highlights, the face of Minnesota Timberwolves basketball, but there's a certain responsibility that comes with your gifts. You know, we've seen LeBron James carry this for so long, and I think a lot of it maybe goes unnoticed, or is not said enough about how he does it and the way that he does it. And I think some of these guys can stand to learn from the way that he's carried this thing for so long and the positions that he's put himself in and how he's helped to kind of champion the league. And I know we're kind of talking out both sides of our mouths a little bit in terms of LeBron and what the All-Star game has been since he's been in it. Player empowerment you spoke to earlier, him not ever being in the dunk contest. So for everybody who's listening, I can almost see you guys' eyes rolling as I'm saying this, but it's just when you are that great, that talented, that athletic, I think you just owe it to the league. You owe it to the guys before you to carry this thing forward, to push it forward, to leave the game in a better place than what you found it. And it may seem silly to talk about an all-star game or all-star weekend in this way, but when I was a kid, when we were kids, I speak for myself, I very much look forward to the all-star game, man, and seeing the best of the best guard each other. And again, we know that they're not playing balls to the wall for 48 minutes, but there was a certain expectation that came with the game, you know, and showing your best and doing the best you can. I think before the Elam ending game, the first time they played that, the last game I remember really kind of sticking in my memory is the one that went into overtime, if not double overtime. It might have been Jordan's last game where he sent the game into the first overtime with a fadeaway jumper over Sean Marion.
In Atlanta, 2003.
Yeah. I think KG ended up getting MVP honors, but that's you know, it's few and far between now, the All-Star weekends or games that are sticking in my mind. You know, whereas before, it felt like there was more to kind of pick and choose from. Maybe it's us getting older. Maybe the game, you know, feels a certain way to us now that it didn't then, or vice versa. But I feel like, to your point, things just have not been the same lately. It says a lot when Larry Bird is having to go into the locker room in Indianapolis last year and tell guys, hey, man, you guys got to put on for the league, for yourselves, for the history of the game. It says a lot about the league when Adam Silver is having to do the same thing before this All-Star game and this All-Star weekend. So something's got to change. That's not a good look. That you guys had to continue to be told to play hard. This is not good. I don't know if they need to switch around media obligations or whatever it is that's keeping these guys so busy that by the time they get to Sunday, they appear to be gassed. Like something has to change.
Hey, man, we are celebrating the 62nd birthday of the great Michael Jeffrey Jordan today. And if there is one voice that is like, somebody has to call Mike, I don't know who it is, if it's Adam Silver, if it's a number of people from positions of power and positions of respect in Michael Jordan's eyes, where they're calling him and texting him, and Mike's looking at his phone, he picks it up and like, Mike, we need you, bro. We need you to save things. And you know how Mike is. Mike is just probably like, all right, man, let me go talk to these young fools. And if he comes into a locker room and he explains the importance of this weekend, because we understand out of anyone in NBA history, and this is LeBron included, because this is the first guy to go through that type of celebrity worldwide and understood what his position was, understood what his impact was, and understood what his responsibility was to continue to grow the game during his time, is Michael Jordan. So there is no amount of media obligations, fan obligations, people on the side obligations that somebody is going through as Michael Jordan, and still had the energy and the fire. And I know Mike is a one-on-one when it comes to competitiveness, hunger, all of that stuff. But that's the one voice that I feel that if there is a card to be played and it's like break the glass in case of emergency, is Michael Jordan. Shine the back signal, the Jordan logo, put it in the sky, and have him come out. Because again, you know his impact is still real. We saw that when they had the 75th announcement of the players, with the 75 players in NBA history, and having them introduced, and how not only fans, but the arena and also players respectfully show love to Michael Jordan when he walked into the building. When you saw that, you understood the level of respect he commands. So if it gets to that point, which I feel it is at that point, then you got to make that call. But you were saying a couple of different things, and before we finish with the pod, when it comes to player empowerment, we are for player empowerment. We get that, but also there's a responsibility when you have player empowerment, especially when it comes to All-Star Weekend, that you have that obligation to fans to make sure that you show up and show out. And we get it, like past All-Star games, as Drew mentioned, going back to 2003, even before that, it's not like you're picking up 94 feet. And even if you look back at those All-Star games, those guys were not every single possession playing Game 7 NBA Finals type defense, but there wasn't as many runouts. There wasn't as many open the lane up, somebody goes all the way down and scores. There wasn't a lot of that. So some things have to change, Drew.
Yeah, they do. I mean, if they got to call Big Mike, they got to call Big Mike to do something. But I don't know, man. Like I said, I feel like this particular All-Star games, whatever you want to say, the actual basketball being played wasn't the issue. So I think in my mind, that's a positive spin. Maybe can leave a little bit of optimism for people moving forward. But I think at the end of the day, I would like to just see it go back east-west, like you said, 48 minutes. If it's held in the Eastern Conference city, those guys wear their home jerseys, the West wear their road jerseys. Just do it like that, man. You know, stop trying to do so much with it. Just keep it simple. Just keep it simple. But again, I don't think we're going to see a change until the younger players take it upon themselves to make the change.
Right.
I don't think any of these quote-unquote gimmicks are going to do the trick.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm a big believer in having substance over gimmicks. And that was something that I tweeted out, that substance is greater than gimmicks. Get back to the essence of what it is, man. Compete. And that's at the bottom line, something that you can control. If you do that, you don't need all of the extraness when it comes to the entertainment side and having these in-arena announcers and all of that stuff and having these comedy segments or comedy breaks and all of that. Get back to just playing ball and celebrating yourself, celebrating the league, celebrating fans by doing what you do best when it comes to your profession. And that's hoop at the highest level there is in the world. So we got some time to see if things are going to change. I know we didn't touch on the dunk contest, but shout out to Mac McClung, first ever 3-time NBA dunk champion, 3 straight years. That's another conversation for another day. You know, Modest did not handle things, I'm sure, the way that he wanted to handle them with the dunk contest, along with the Rising Stars game that we saw Friday night as well. But hey, we know the young fellow might try and submit himself into the dunk contest next year, but it could be interesting to see what that field looks like for the dunk contest. And hopefully the skills challenge is thrown out and into the garbage and thrown into 2 garbage bags and thrown into a furnace, because it's just wild. I can't go into that because it's gonna be another hour of me just going off on what that was. But there has to be new events, a fresh style of thinking. It's going to be an opportunity not only for the NBA, but you're talking about NBC taking over things, or Amazon taking over things with the NBA and how that looks. So it'll be interesting to see what they have up their sleeve moving forward with the All-Star game. But next year in LA, 75th annual, it's going to be curious to see how the NBA plays this, man. But Bulls are back in action on Thursday against the New York Knicks in the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. So Drew and I will be back after that game for a little post game and see what we got with this Bulls team for the final 27 games of the 24-25 NBA season. But hey, I know you guys are in the comments talking your talk and giving your ideas on All-Star Weekend, and probably just, coming up with your solutions to what could be. So just continue to let us know. We appreciate you for subscribing. We appreciate you for watching. We appreciate you for listening. We appreciate you for commenting. So thank you so much to everybody that always taps into the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Cam Smith, my man Drew Stevens of the Bigs. We were supposed to only do 20 minutes. We doubled up and did 40 minutes. Our producer, 𝗵𝗶 is like, bro, what the hell are y'all doing? Because we were in agreement to do 20 minutes, but we just got to a certain just little wave and lane to where we both held each other back and we're just like, no, let Drew cook. No, let Cam cook. Let's just go ahead and talk through this thing. So it's kind of therapeutic, Drew, to have that.
Absolutely. You had to get some stuff off your chest, man. You came in hot, man.
I did, man. I did, man. And again, NBA, what the hell was that? Come on. We got to do better. We got to do better, man. It's too great of a league. All right, we'll see everybody later on this week. Thank you for tapping in with us on the By the Horns podcast.